And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the first ever college football playoff pregame show here on the Woodward Sports Network. We're so very excited to have all of you, myself, Adham, Beydoun, Flannel Sam to my right, and of course in the, what do we want to call that, the ostrich chair? How do we want to identify you, buddy?
The ostrich chair, the Maz chair, the Booner
chair. The Maz chair, that's what we call it, the Booner chair. Booner, good afternoon, buddy. It's going to be a great day. For all you Michigan fans out there, savor the day. It is one of the best days of the year. The only way it can get better is if you win, of course, but we got a lot to talk about. So where do we want to start, boys? I think we should start by how Michigan even got here, no?
Yes, yeah.
That to me, Flannel, is the story. Predate COVID. You go into the COVID year, it's a disaster. As a Michigan man, that was probably the lowest ebb in your program's history, not only under Harbaugh, but even you can compare it to the Hoke days, you can compare it to the Rich Rod days. Very difficult. And somehow, some way, you guys stayed the course, built a phenomenal football team, and now you are not only one of the powerhouses in college football, guys, you have won 25 of your last 27, and your only loss out of the Big Ten is to Georgia.
Unbelievable.
Talk to me.
Yeah, no, I'm older than people think. I'm 31, so I was there during the Rich Rod days. I was there during the Brady Hoke days. There were a lot of lean times. But that COVID 2020 season was the single most miserable season I have ever experienced as a Michigan fan. If you would have told me after that they would respond with 2 Big Ten championships, beating Ohio State twice, making it to 2 college football playoffs, I would have said you were crazy, but that's literally what happened. And it's just amazing to see what they've done the last couple of years. I point to the fact that Jim Harbaugh fired Don Brown and brought in a Mike McDonald and then followed up with Jesse Minter. But just the way that they got there with the stout defense, with the running game, with offensive line play, it's been such a joy to watch these last 2 years, but even a bigger joy to watch this season in particular. It's been the most fun I've ever had as a Michigan fan, and coincidentally, it's been my year working here, so it's been a double bonus. Booner?
Yeah, I mean, Flannel, you said it exactly. Like the COVID year, I'm a lot younger than you, so like I was young through all those tough eras. Even like before that, back when we were good like Braylon and stuff, I was too young to kind of like remember all of that. But when you had that COVID year, and then you have the Jim Harbaugh situation where it's like people want him out, he has to take a pay cut, like all of these different things. And then these last 2 seasons happen, and even like, I mean, you can kind of agree with me here, Flannel, is even after last year, there were so many people who were doubting, like, can Michigan do it again? Like, that was just a fluke year. What can they do? Can they do it back-to-back years? Are they legit? Are they back? And now we're sitting in a position in the college football playoffs to where we're expected to win and go to a national championship. I think that everything's flipped, and it's just like I said it a couple weeks ago when we did our last show. You're flipping the page here in Michigan football history to that next spot, and especially with teams coming into the Big Ten, this is a huge, huge game.
Booner, you and Flannel are the resident Michigan fans on the show right now. Okay,
100%.
I think you guys are both spot on. The turnaround this program has had has been nothing short of exceptional.
Yeah.
But we need to relax a little bit on one thing. I never felt the Jim Harbaugh criticism, although fair at times, was ever, how do I say this, from national media, acceptable. From local media, acceptable. You have to win the big games. You have to beat your rivals. I can get behind all that. That's a standard. No problem. But prior to Jim Harbaugh, even with Lloyd Carr, this was not a national powerhouse. This wasn't a team that was in the conversation, that was winning the Big Ten every other year. This was a team that couldn't win the Big Ten for 18 years. It took Jim Harbaugh to break it since, 2004 was the last one. And then they won it in 2021. And now 2022. Here you go. 17, 18 years between your Big Ten. So I never understood the criticism of Harbaugh when he took you to a level, in my opinion, you only experienced for a few years under Lloyd Carr, a few years with Bo. That never sat well with me, Flannel and Booner, but I always looked at Jim Harbaugh the way I look at Dabo Swinney. That was my favorite comparison I think I've ever made in my life. Because you look at Dabo's first 7 years, he's winning the ACC, sure. He's winning bowl games, sure. But the same amount of wins almost as Jim Harbaugh, and the same amount of college football playoff appearances in their first 7 years. Same. The exact same. Now, you can point to me and say, Adam, well, Dabo won his conference at least. Well, yeah, but Jim Harbaugh is going up against Urban Meyer, and I don't know many coaches that would win the Big Ten going up against Urban. It's very, very select few.
Very, very select few.
So, unfortunate, unlucky, going up against some of the best Ohio State teams we've ever seen, a team that went to the college football playoff multiple times, that won the college football playoffs, I believe in, who was it? The year they beat Bama?
It was 2014.
They beat Bama in the championship game?
They beat Bama
they beat Bama in the first semifinal,
Oregon in the
and then they
final.
beat Oregon in the championship game. That was with Zeke and Cardell Jones, right? Thank you. So you have not only matched Dabo, but you followed it up with the same year 8 he's had. In year 8, Deshaun Watson got to the college football playoff championship game. It is right in front of you, Michigan.
Yep.
And I think the job Jim Harbaugh has done, I don't even think to this day is praised enough. I still think there's reservations, just like you said, Booner, which blows my mind. I don't think you can be doubting a guy who, if there's 4 guys, maybe 5 guys right now, you told me I can start a program tomorrow.
Yep.
And I get to hire one dude to lead the charge. Lincoln Riley, Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Jim Harbaugh.
What, Dabo?
Iffy on Dabo, but I'll give him out of respect. I'll say
Sure.
Dabo, but he would be at the bottom of my list.
Yep.
He's part of that conversation.
And kind of with that as well too is Flannel talked about it on a show earlier this week. Is he's putting himself in the position to be the greatest coach of Michigan history, and Flannel said it maybe the greatest person or
Football figure
in Michigan football history. And with that and I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit today, is Jim Harbaugh going to leave Michigan? I'm on the side to where I think he ends his career here. I think this is kind of a career-ending job to where he's putting his legacy on the line here, and he is really becoming one of the best to ever do it for the University of Michigan, to where I don't see him leaving and trying to do something else after this. It's like a Nick Saban situation at Alabama, to where Saban's not going to go take another job somewhere. When he's done, he's done. I think it's the same thing with the Dabo Swinney. I can't see Dabo going anywhere outside of Clemson in the next 15 years until his career is over. I think Jim Harbaugh's starting to cement himself in Michigan at that point to where he's not win or lose today, win or lose the national championship game, whatever happens. I think he's done so well at Michigan these last few years to where he's cemented himself that he's going to end his career at the University of Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, and I hate to bring it up now because Jim Harbaugh has obviously had such a turnaround these last couple of years, but I was in the camp that I did want him gone after the COVID year because he did obviously stabilize the program, but he never beat Ohio State. They seemed to lose every single big game they were ever in, and they also would lose to Michigan State more often than they should. But he has turned it around. People used to bring up the Dabo Swinney stuff even in 2019 and 2020, and I would laugh. I would say you guys were out of your mind, but guess what? He is on track to have that Dabo Swinney trajectory where he kind of is good and not great his first 7 years and then takes the program to the next stratosphere. And what he is doing right now, I have no reservations about Jim Harbaugh. I'm going to put a shrine of him in my bedroom if they win the national championship.
I like where this is going.
Yes, but he will have earned it. He is trending towards being one of the best. He already is one of the best coaches in the country, but if he can lead this team to a national championship, I think you're going to have to say Nick Saban 1, Jim Harbaugh 2. And if he wins a national championship this year, best coach in school history.
Oh, easily. And I think, what's funny, Booner, is we talk about a coach who has had his struggles, wasn't able to win the big game, right? Couldn't beat his rivals, Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio State. Now he's done it in really in thrilling fashion.
Yeah.
He's 2-0 in the last 2 years against Ohio State.
Yep.
Split with Michigan State. To be honest, they should have beat Michigan State that day, but that's a whole different problem. 2-0 against Penn State, 2-0 against Iowa. They've only lost one Big Ten game in the last 2 years, and that was against Michigan State on the road. And then they follow up a year where they lose to Georgia, and it was pretty bad, right? It was pretty bad, but they followed up by running the table. And you want to point out their out-of-conference schedule, and it was weak. Shut the hell up. None of these schools are incentivized to schedule a difficult out-of-conference. You're not incentivized by it. You don't get in the college football playoff because of it. You get in the college football playoff by winning your conference, by only having one loss if you're lucky, and that's it.
Yeah, those conversations are, like you said, you can't really compare that. Like the SEC, in week 11, 12, they all play like Division II schools. So everyone has those games, and like you said, you don't get paid like to win those games. That doesn't like you're going to get to the college football playoffs if you take care of business in the conference, if you go win your conference championship. So those games don't matter. If you have a good football team, which Michigan does, like you look back to week 4, week 5, and everyone's like, oh, they're playing these weak teams, they're blowing them out. Maybe they're not that great. Now you look back, and this is one of the second best team in college football right now.
Flannel brought this up. When they fired Don Brown,
Yep.
their program went from this, and it went
Yep.
straight to the moon. And I think it's obvious. Your defense is much better. Somehow you lose, in my opinion, 3 first-round talents. I know Jabba went in the second round, but that was because of his injury. But you lost 3 first-round talents, and you followed it up by having a better statistical year defensively than you did last year, and you lost your defensive coordinator. Like, for me, that was the question going into the season. I knew the offense would be there. I knew JJ was going to eventually get the job. I knew Jim Harbaugh would be able to run the ball and win most of those Big Ten games. But could the defense give you what they gave you last year without McDonald? And they proved it. They proved it. Minter took the same system, added a few adjustments. The rise of Mike Sanistril,
Ooh.
who will be I really do believe this. He continues to play like this. Next year, he'll play his way into the first round of the NFL draft. Not in the early rounds, of course, but I think a late first-round pick, picks 28 to 32, an
Yeah, I
early
agree.
second-round pick, I could almost call that a lock if he continues to play the way he is. Mike Morris has played himself into being a viable draft option for teams. Look, Michigan put out defensive talent. You can't argue that in the NFL. That is a fact. Look, again, you guys know how I feel about Jim Harbaugh. Obviously, this year I gave my support to Michigan State. That was a whole thing. But I think we need to take a second before today's game and really understand, holy hell, these last 24 months, I can't even explain how you've turned it all around.
No, it's a golden age of Michigan football, and it's only going to continue. And you kind of mentioned something earlier, how last year they made the college football playoff. They beat Ohio State. That was kind of the first progression of the team. And they lost to what I believe is a historically great Georgia team that had 5 first-round draft pick defensive players, plus Nakobe Dean, plus Kelly Ringo, plus Jalen Carter. I mean, you're not going to beat that team. But how they've responded and proved that it's not a fluke. They run the table. They go into Columbus and beat Ohio State for the first time since 2000. They leave no doubt that they run the Big Ten now. Their defense manages to somehow get even better while losing Aiden Hutchinson, the number 2 pick in the draft, David Ojabo, and Dax Hill. It truly is unbelievable, and it's a testament to the players, the coaching staff, and just everyone around the Michigan program, just how they have improved, how they've been the last 24 months, and just they're playing today. They're favored in a game to win,
Yes.
to go to the national championship.
And they will, I think.
I believe so as well, and I'm sure we'll get to that later.
Let's take a pause.
Yes.
When we get back, we have to discuss, I would say, the passing of the torch. How a team last year that won the Big Ten with Cade McNamara suddenly were able to go to Columbus, suddenly able to open up big plays. I want your guys' thoughts on your quarterback going into today, what he's capable of. We'll have that conversation coming up in just a bit, but before we go, as always, the College Football Playoff Show here on the Woodward Sports Network is brought to you by our good friends over at Swiss Insurance and Custom Health Centers. We will see you guys in just a minute.
Love Woodward Sports? Love wearing clothes? Then you should be wearing Woodward Sports clothes. Check out our full line of merch at woodwardsports.com. Just click on Shop. We have all your favorite designs, like Dan Campbell kneecaps, Beverly Hills Golf, Woodward Golf, and of course, our own logoed out merchandise. Men, women, infants, kids all love Woodward Sports. Impress your friends. Impress your boss. Impress your dog. Buy Woodward Sports merch today.
It's a great day to get some Centron in your life. Okay. There it is. Centron, here we go. Gotta grab the cranberry. Oh wait, it's 2 for $4. Gotta double up with the classic as well. Centron World, baby. Centron, available at select Kroger's, and if you wanna know how, go to @CentronWorld.com. You get dope like me. You know what? Why wait? Great taste, guaranteed.
All right, we are back here. Michigan versus TCU, the college football playoff semifinal game, the Fiesta Bowl. It's kind of weird seeing the Michigan playing in the Fiesta Bowl. Usually it's the Orange Bowl, but
It's all right.
what are you going to do?
It's college football playoff.
What are you going to do? Have you
I'll
guys
take
seen how much that trophy is worth, by the way?
No.
$2.5 million worth of diamonds in that little football trophy. I find that to be absolutely insane.
The national championship trophy?
No, the Fiesta Bowl
Or
trophy.
just the Fiesta Bowl?
Yes.
That's unbelievable.
Ridiculous. Having said that, boys, JJ McCarthy, Flannel, I'll start with you. Tried out for the team early on. Clearly won the job.
Yes.
Was the right man for the job. We'd pitched him all along. And suddenly, somehow, someway, you find yourself with a young, up-and-coming quarterback who could lead you a national championship.
Yeah, absolutely. But we got to remember, too, that for a lot of the season, the passing game did look a little bit broken. They weren't really opening up the offense as much as we thought they would, and JJ didn't always look so good. He, had some young, sort of inexperienced type of plays. But the one thing that JJ McCarthy did do consistently, even when he was kind of more of a game manager, was A, he extended plays with his legs, B, he was able to get some key third down scrambles, and C, he did not turn the football over. And I was told that was going to be something.
I was told he was a turnover machine. I don't know if you guys missed that.
3 interceptions. Cade McNamara had 6, by the way. But that's neither here nor there. But the thing that you can do that will most make your Michigan legend is have your coming out party in Columbus at Ohio State with a chance to beat him for the first time since 2000. And it was really J.J. McCarthy who sort of started the game for Michigan. He hit that big 69-yard pass to Cornelius Johnson off of his back foot with a great run after catch as well. He hit another pass to Cornelius Johnson, which was more of a defensive breakdown, but JJ, to be fair, had some trouble hitting the deep ball. He hit that one. He hit the one to Colston Loveland after halftime to put them ahead, which was his best throw of the day, and also to sort of give them a 10-point lead, he had a rushing touchdown. That is 3 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown to basically provide all of the scoring, and then Donovan Edwards closed it out. I was so happy for him and so proud of him in that game. He really had his coming out party at Ohio State, and that was what kind of showed me that was the man that I always thought that he was. That was the quarterback that I always thought that he was. And then I thought he played pretty well against Purdue. He had 3 touchdown passes. Some of the throws he was making just made me gasp. They were so
Even
beautiful.
Ohio State.
Yep.
You guys remember the off-balance throw he had on third and 8, I want to say?
Yep.
It was to Cornelius Johnson,
Yep.
off his back foot, Ohio State defender right in his face, on a line, in stride. Cornelius puts his foot in the ground. The rest is history. It's a touchdown.
Yeah, and what was the one argument with Cade McNamara and J.J. McCarthy when people were looking who should they start was when you get to the college football playoffs, who's going to win you those games and how is your
Not
team going to be?
even that. Just in general, Booner.
Yeah.
If I tell you Michigan win 45-38 against Iowa, and Cade McNamara was the quarterback, would you put your money, your whole life savings, on the fact that he won them the game, or he was just there?
He was just there.
And that's the reality with Cade and JJ. It's why people like myself, yourself, Flannel, whoever the hell it is, were campaigning and lobbying for this kid. It was so obvious.
Yeah.
This was the decision. And if you were at Ohio State, if you were a school like Clemson, if you were a school like Bama, this isn't even a conversation.
No, I agree, because it's a 5-star situation to where, and Adam, you talked about it at the beginning of the year. You bring a 5-star in, you want him to play. You want to start getting into the conversation where Michigan's in the conversations to compete with Georgia, and that was the big thing last year is we went and played Georgia, and we got thrown off the field.
As you should have.
Yeah,
They were the best team in the country.
Exactly, but this season, it's more of a situation to where now we're considered one of the best teams in the country.
As you should be.
And with J.J. McCarthy, that changes the whole dynamic of the game, and everyone knew
He
that.
gives you a chance.
Yeah,
even when your
exactly.
team isn't at its best.
And that was the argument that everyone had with Cade was, we want a chance in January.
What happened against Ohio State? I'm sorry. You guys don't call me crazy.
Night and day
Last I
difference.
checked, the first half, Ohio State should be up 2-3 touchdowns. They were the better team.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
They outgained you. They outplayed you. But what happened? the guy we're talking about right now, made a few throws that gave you the lead, that kept you in the game. And then in the second half, it started to click. Your defense stepped up with some big stops. Yes, Donovan Edwards, those 2 carries, I mean, that was very nice. But that was a close game for the most part, and you were in it and winning it in large part due to your quarterback.
Yep. And that's to me, that's just the game changer of it all. We look back at the whole quarterback battle going on, and I think that was just one of the biggest questions and arguments going into that battle was we want to be able to compete in January, December 31st today. We want to be able to compete in these games to win a national championship, and it just wasn't something you would do with a Cade McNamara. And nothing against him, too, because he won us that Big Ten championship. He did everything. And I understand that face.
I had as much to do.
I understand that face, but
come on, Booner.
He was still the captain and quarterback. And I do.
I had as much involvement
but
as Cade McNamara did winning that big championship. Where's my fucking ring?
You can't just take the man's ring away, though. Like, he was there, he got that program, and he helped lead the team. He might not have
I was in the state of Michigan, all right?
Do you have a ring?
I was in the state of Michigan when they won the Big Ten championship. Where's my fucking ring, huh? Where's my ring?
I'm throwing that out there.
I'm just saying.
He changes that.
What, my next door neighbor gets credit for my kid because I fucked my wife and got her pregnant? Is that how it works? What are we doing here?
I see what you're. But my point is when you go into that battle there, people want to give Cade that respect just because he was the quarterback.
And how'd he do in that battle? He shit himself.
I would love to go back and get receipts from people on Twitter and all across the internet to see the people who were lobbying for Cade McNamara with that argument. Saying, they need to keep him because
resident Twitter aficionado Don Thomas. That's my boy.
Oh, Don Thomas.
Don Thomas is my guy. That is my go-to buddy. The Don, the return of the man.
To the Mac.
God, that was a whole thing.
Yeah.
And look, again, it's not about who's right. It's not about who's wrong. But if you're an actual Michigan fan and you want to sit here and talk to me about Cade McNamara being the better option for you guys because it's the right choice, it's safe, it's, we can win 10 games at least. Okay, maybe your floor is higher. But whose ceiling is higher?
Oh, yeah.
J.J. McCarthy. And you underestimated his arm talent. You underestimated his leadership ability. And remember Ohio State? Because I remember it very well. Go look at the 2 sidelines. Go watch that game back. What was Michigan's sideline like? Exactly like J.J. McCarthy. Yep. Swag, confidence, poised. And what was Ohio State's sideline like? Frustrated, disappointed, kind of like C.J. Stroud was that whole game.
Yep.
I'm sorry. The leadership questions, the game management questions, the turnover questions, J.J. McCarthy has checked all those boxes in spades. And over-delivered, in my opinion.
Yep, and then when you need him to win a game, he did it at Ohio State when the stakes were the highest. Because I don't know if you guys remember. I think a lot of people have forgotten about this. Until it was 31-23, was Michigan really running the ball that effectively? The answer is absolutely not. It was J.J. McCarthy who made those big throws. It was J.J. McCarthy who, made a couple of big runs, including that 19-yarder that happened right before the 45-yarder to Colston Loveland. And I truly believe that if Cade McNamara is playing quarterback in that particular game, that Michigan loses. J.J. McCarthy made all of the plays that he needed to make. And even early on in the year when he was sort of more of a game manager, the fact is that Michigan had a good enough team so that they didn't need him to really do anything spectacular.
Are either of you, how do I say this? I don't think any Michigan fan, a legitimate one, not a legitimate one, but just anybody with common sense, you watched that Ohio State game, that was a struggle, okay? That was a struggle. Donovan Edwards late, those 2 carries, it took him house, it made it seem like it was a blowout, but that game was neck and neck for a majority of the game.
Yep.
Unfortunate how it ended for Ohio State, really great for Michigan if you ask me, but you were able to go into Columbus and play what we all expected to be a close game. And you won it.
Yep.
You won it, and now you're looking at Bama right now play Kansas State. You're playing in the Fiesta Bowl. You're playing in the college football playoff semifinal over a USC, over a Bama, over a Tennessee. You are doing that. And you've earned it. You've earned it. Seriously. Here's what we're going to do. I want to take a break. When we get back, okay, Donovan Edwards. Jim Harbaugh said that Donovan Edwards single-handedly saved their season by stepping in and doing what he did against Ohio State and Purdue. I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on that. I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on possibly Donovan Edwards being a Heisman frontrunner next year. You thought Blake Corum was good? Would love to see this kid get 300 carries, 40, 50 catches out of the backfield. We might be talking about one of the better backs in college football for the next year and a half. So I want to talk about Donovan Edwards, but before we do, as always, the College Football Playoff pregame show is brought to you by our good friends over at Swiss Insurance and Custom Health Centers.
Truly an experience. There's no better place than Lady Jane's Haircuts for Men. Come to any one of our 26 Metro Detroit locations for an award-winning haircut experience and qualify for a chance to win a down payment for your dream home up to $200,000. Our precision haircut and talented stylists will have you looking good, feeling good, and give you a chance to change your life forever. Lady Jane's Haircuts for Men, open 7 days a week. Walk in anytime. It's wicked awesome.
At work and at home, we're there with smarter security solutions. Featuring complete automation with customized alerts and more. For over 90 years, we've been the company that's been counted on to protect what matters most, all with personalized service and care. Right now, for a limited time, receive a free video device plus free installation with a new home system. Guardian Alarm. We protect Michigan.
We here at Woodward Sports would like to thank everybody who helped us stuff our studio. The third annual Stuff a Studio was a major success, thanks in part to our partners at Guardian Alarm and Meyer Stores for making it all possible. And of course, we couldn't do it without our community leaders and viewers like you. Thank you for dropping off toys to our studio that were taken to the Mott Children's Hospital in Ann Arbor so every sick child could have a happy holiday.
We are incredibly grateful for Woodward Sports, Guardian Alarm, and Meyer for making the holidays so special for our patients and families.
So what we do is try to bring some normalcy to their lives at this time. This is a labor of love. It brings so much joy, and not just for the families and for the children, but for our staff.
Thank you.
All right, that was our Stuff a Studio recap, and I'll tell you what, that was so enjoyable. The amount of kids that were so happy when we showed up, it was special. So can't thank Wicked Awesome Wishes, Guardian Alarm, of course, everybody here at Woodward Sports, everybody who helped us, Meyer, everything and everyone that helped put together a very special Christmas for a lot of children who are going through some tough times right now. But here's where we're at, boys. Donovan Edwards likely going into next year as one of the 3-4 best running backs in the country. And I could make the case that he's a better talent than not only Blake Corum is, he's a better player. And I know Corum was so vital for Michigan, don't get me wrong. And clearly you guys struggled when he went down against Illinois. That second half was pathetic. But insert Donovan Edwards the next week, and then Purdue, and suddenly Michigan haven't missed a beat, and they're one of the best teams in the country again, right?
Yeah.
So, Flannel, your thoughts on Donovan Edwards, his impact today, his impact for the rest of the season, and what he could be next year?
I mean, what Donovan Edwards did in the last 2 games cannot be overstated. In my opinion, and these are the highest stakes, at Ohio State and in the Big Ten Championship, had the greatest 2-game stretch any Michigan running back has ever had, running for over 200 at Ohio State, and Mariano revering that game by having a 75-yard touchdown and an 85-yard touchdown to close it out, and then having 185 against Purdue. Donovan Edwards is obviously the more talented back than Blake Corum. And I have a lot of love for Blake Corum. No disrespect for what he did all season. He was vital. He was the bell cow. But what Donovan Edwards did in Blake Corum's absence is kind of be a little bit of that bell cow himself when they needed him the most, because you don't want to see C.J. Stokes getting too many carries. You don't want to see Isaiah Gash getting too many carries. You want to see Donovan Edwards going out there showing what he's got in the biggest games, and he did just that. And going forward, especially against TCU, playing that 3-3-5 defense, I expect Donovan Edwards to get at least 175 and a couple of touchdowns, to break a couple of big ones. I expect him to sort of be the engine that wins them the game. And then moving forward in the national championship, I expect him to be maybe their most valuable player too that day, depending on who they match up with. And as far as going into next year, he's going to go into next year being the most talented running back in the country. If you saw it this year, he's just so explosive. He's shifty. He's proven he can be an every down back. And when his hand isn't hurt, you see what he does out of the backfield catching the ball. many times this year, in 2 games in particular, at Rutgers and at Iowa, Donovan Edwards looked like J.J. McCarthy's favorite target, the guy that he trusted the most. Donovan Edwards is that type of guy that I believe when it's all said and done will be the highest drafted Michigan skill position player since Braylon Edwards. He is a dude. He is a superstar. And hey, not to go too far in the future, I could see him being the best running back in the NFL in 3 to 5 years.
All right, let's put down the crack pipe. Booner, what do you think?
Hey, come on. Am I crazy, Booner?
No, you're not crazy. There's one stat I don't think is talked about, and I don't know if I've heard it yet, but he leads the nation in yards per carry at 7.5 yards per carry, which is that's insane. And it's not like he hasn't gotten carries. He has 117 attempts on the season, so he still is getting carries. So I mean, I think everyone in the country saw what he could do versus Ohio State, and I think this is another platform and another area for him to show the whole world and the country again today versus TCU how legit he is. He's going to get 20-plus carries today. He's going to have 150, almost 200 yards, I bet, today again. And I think he goes into next season as the best running back in the country.
There we go.
And like Sam said, I do think he will be a first-round pick eventually out of Michigan because, I mean, we saw what Corum – if Corum doesn't go down, he's in New York. Donovan Edwards is a better – and it takes nothing away from what Blake Corum did because he is a great player. Donovan Edwards is more skilled. He's way better of a player, though. You put him behind and get, 300 carries, like you said, Adam, next year behind that offensive line at Michigan. I mean, he's going to be a Heisman finalist. He's going to be a front runner to win it next year. Unless, knock on wood, some sort of injury next year like Blake Corum happens. And it happens with running backs a lot. That's why it's so rare, sometimes to see running backs in that quarterback kind of award. But I wouldn't be surprised. He's averaging 7.5 yards per carry. That is absolutely insane to think about.
That speaks to his explosive plays. We didn't even mention the one he had against Penn State, which was another huge game. That was the run that gave Michigan the lead for good when they were kind of floundering down 17-16. Donovan Edwards is just, when you watch him play, when you watch him run in the open field, one of the things that we thought that Blake Corum was he was sort of the dash, where last year Hassan Haskins was the smash. But Donovan Edwards is faster, more explosive than Blake Corum, and to me it's not even particularly close, and to me he's more powerful running between the tackles. I can't speak highly enough about what I feel about what he's done this season, leading the nation in yards per carry. That's not super surprising to me with all of his explosive plays, and just he is going to be the key offensively if they're going to win the national championship this year, if they're going to sort of have a repeat of this year next year. And I think he's got what it takes to do it. Are you as high, Adam, on Donovan Edwards as I am, and to some extent Booner?
For the most part, yes. I think he's a better NFL talent than even some of the running backs that are projected to go in the first, second round this year. Donovan Edwards, to me, checks all the boxes as an NFL prospect.
Yes.
I do think he'll be one of the best backs next year. I do think behind this amazing offensive line that retools every single year and is always dominant, he'll put up Heisman numbers. Having said that, lay off the crack pipe a little bit, man. Like, I don't want to have to start doing drug tests here, all right? We got a lot of people that, need their jobs, Flannel. Just chill out here. Anyways, we talked about Donovan Edwards. I want to talk about Ronnie Bell. I want to talk about Andrew Anthony. I want to talk about Schoonmaker. I want to talk about some of these guys, these unknown heroes throughout the season who, and in this type of offense, are run blocking a lot,
yes,
are getting physical. Guys, this wide receiving core, I still think is super talented. We just don't see Michigan dropping back 38, 40 times a game where you get to see the separation. And to be honest, that's not even their style anyways. So I want your guys' thoughts on your receivers and whether or not they're good enough to win you a game, not just today against TCU, but possibly in a title game against Georgia.
Yeah, they 100% are good enough. I mean, they haven't put up, a lot of them haven't put up the numbers that they were projected to, but that doesn't mean that they haven't played well. Ronnie Bell has been one of the biggest stars on this offense this year, and he's done it rather quietly. If you remember last season, he was out for most of the year. He went down in week 1, was out for the season, wasn't even on the team during the Big Ten championship run, wasn't playing during the college football playoff, and this year he leads the team in receptions and receiving yards and ultimately turned into what I believe is the safety blanket for J.J. McCarthy. A guy like Cornelius Johnson, he broke out and had the game of his life at Ohio State, kind of like J.J. McCarthy did, kind of like Donovan Edwards did. It was a whole team effort, and he was as responsible as anybody. Luke Schoonmaker. Remember Eric All? He was the guy that was supposed to be the guy coming into
By
this
the way,
year.
Eric All, bitch.
I agree with
Next
that 100%.
I think we all knew he
100%.
was going to Iowa. That was just like unbelievable that
Yeah,
happened.
you know, like him and his boyfriend needed to go play football somewhere. I get it.
Well said.
get
I
it.
was going to say something a little more vulgar, but I will say with
I'll say it
boyfriend-
for you. He's a fucking bitch. Total bitch.
Yep.
Bitch move. No class. Soft as my toilet paper. What else? Cade's. I don't want to swear. We're having a good show.
No,
what are we doing
it's-
here?
it's all
Let's
right.
move on. Let's not talk about irrelevant people, huh, guys?
But like Luke Schoonmaker, have they missed a beat with
Loveland.
him? Colston Loveland is a better tight end prospect than Eric All ever was. Speaking of guys who's going to be an NFL player someday, did you see him moss those 2 guys against Purdue on the first touchdown of the game? He's a
Forget
star.
that play. How about the kid they just pulled off, 4-star recruit coming in next year? Mm-hmm. 4-star tight end. I mean, Michigan, man. Michigan are going to be good, man.
Into tight end use. So this wide receiver core, it hasn't been, at least catching the ball wise, it hasn't been what I thought they would be. The offense hasn't opened up as much as we thought it would be, and that has a lot to do with it as well. The one guy, though, I know he's valuable run blocking, but Andrell Anthony, 7 catches for 80 yards the whole year. That's a guy that has definitely disappointed. Remember the Illinois game, he actually got a ball and he dropped it right in his hands. That would have put them ahead 17-10 on a 4th down, by the way. He's the one guy that I would say has been disappointing. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he transferred. It just hasn't worked out this year. But other than that, they've all done their job. I'm super happy with them. Run blocking,
I get it,
making
man.
big catches, the tight ends. I'm not mad at them.
Let's shift to this, okay? Let's go to break. But when we get back, the conversation I want to have with both of you is fair or foul. Did they get it right? Did the committee get the 4 right? Because you see Alabama right now totally mauling Kansas State on the screen, 35-13. And I want to know from you guys as well. We'll throw up a poll in the Woodward Sports chat. Did the committee get it right? And I'm not saying the best teams got in, but doesn't record count for something? I at least want to have that conversation with both of you coming up. But before we go, like I mentioned before, the College Football Playoff pregame show is brought to you by our good friends over at Swiss Insurance and Custom Health Centers. We'll be right back in just a minute. Did the committee get it right? We'll preview the 2 games, and we'll continue on with the show, baby. Can't wait. We'll see you guys in just a minute.
You don't have to go to the beach, man. You don't have to get your butt crack full of sand. You just need a little chili peppers, man, to get that glowing beach chili peppers tan. Woo!
With 26 locations in the Metro Detroit area and more coming, Chili Peppers Tanning is where you'll find the cleanest salons in the D. Join the Pepper Club for the best deals on unlimited tanning. Head to chilipepperstanning.com.
You just need a little chili peppers, man.
Introducing the Planet Fitness Guide to getting that post-workout glow. Step 1, what's your why? More epic energy, better sleep, blow off steam? Step 2, join Planet Fitness for just $10 a month and get moving in our clean and spacious clubs. Step 3, bask in that post-workout glow. Join Planet Fitness today for just $10 a month.
Join today at any of the 50-plus Detroit area locations.
Can't get enough Woodward Sports content? Head over to woodwardsports.com right now for up-to-date sports articles and great entertainment news. We have the best writers, bloggers, and coverage all at your fingertips. Head to woodwardsports.com right now to experience all Woodward Sports has to offer.
All right, baby, we're back! New Year's Eve. What are you guys doing tonight? Anything? Any plans?
I mean, it all depends.
Get a litty titty?
Hey, it all depends on what happens in the game today. If somehow, some way, Michigan loses,
you'll be drinking your life away.
I will be drinking my life away, and the person who will hate me the most in the world would be my wife, because I'll be a miserable bastard.
Booner, what are you doing if Michigan loses?
If Michigan loses, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to talk to anyone. I'm just going to go to bed.
Did you guys watch what we put out on social media? We put out a video. What would you do if Michigan lost?
I did see that, yeah.
Yep.
Some of the responses were dark. Yeah. Braylon said he would kill himself. Michael Gentry said he'll strangle me. I did nothing.
Wow.
I did see that Monday morning.
What the hell
you're
is
going to
that?
get strangled.
So we got to talk about his employment status on Monday. But anyways,
I'm with Ryan on that one. If they're not going to lose. So
I don't think so either. There's no.
I'm not even going to think about it. Like, I'm nervous.
No
but
chance.
They're not going to lose.
Well, here, let's do this. Did the committee get it right? That's my question for you guys. I don't know why the camera's bugging out like this. What the hell's going on here? Anyways.
Yeah.
Did the committee get it right? Flannel, I'll start with you. Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, TCU. Did they get it right?
Yeah, unfortunately they did. There should be no circumstance where an Ohio State team can get curb stomped and their manhood taken away from them at home by their biggest rival and make the college football playoff. But this year is a down year for college football, and teams like USC and Tennessee and Clemson, they choked when they had a chance. They had everything right out in front of them, and Tennessee due to injury, and Clemson due to not taking out DJ, and then USC due to, I think, Caleb Williams being hobbled, they all lost. Alabama, they're obviously one of the 4 best teams in the country when you watch them play, but they lost twice. You can't put in a 2-loss team over a 1-loss team. As much as I would have liked to have seen it happen, it just can't. And so, sort of by default, because I think TCU kind of backed in as well.
The USC loss, that changed everything.
Yes, it did.
And so did the TCU loss.
Did.
The only thing they could have messed up, in my opinion, is just the order at that point. I remember sitting in here when they released it. We were doing the Lions pregame show, and we just talked about if TCU was number 4 and Ohio State jumped to 3, then that would have been a problem, at least in my opinion. I think they got it right. There's no way you could have put in a Bama. There's no way you could have put a Tennessee or a Clemson in. Like we saw last night with Clemson. Like, there's just no way you could have.
None of these teams deserve to get in. None of them, not Tennessee, not Clemson, not Bama. I know Bama are frustrated. But you can't lose the games you lost and get in.
No.
And Nick Saban's right. He is. If it's Alabama playing TCU today, they're 10.5-point favorites.
Yep.
100%.
If Alabama are playing Ohio State, they're a 1.5-point favorite. If Alabama are playing Georgia, they're maybe a 1.5-point dog. If they're playing Michigan, Alabama are a 3.5-point favorite.
And
he makes the case.
He does.
Totally fine. But when do we acknowledge what you did in the season matters? I know TCU aren't the greatest team in college football. I understand that they had a bad loss to Kansas State, who are getting their ass kicked by Bama at the moment. I understand all that. But when does what you actually did on the field matter?
Yeah, I mean,
and I don't see how I can leapfrog a team with more losses over a team that has fewer losses, and their only loss came in a national, or not national, I apologize, a conference championship game. Final?
And honestly, Alabama's loss at LSU, I think, will continue to age more and more poorly. That's the one that I think is going to keep Nick Saban up at night. The loss at Tennessee, sort of an emotionally charged game, I would accept that. And if they would have only lost that one, they would of course be in. They'd probably be the 3 seed. They would be the 3 seed. And it's just all these teams kept choking.
God damn it, Bama.
Yep.
Chill out.
I know.
What are you doing, Saban?
Can I get an update over here?
Kobe for the touchdown. 42-13.
I have over 57.5, so if we can get to that.
57.5. They're at 54 right now. You're good. Bama's got another touchdown.
One more touchdown.
Yeah,
Oh my God, Nick Saban doesn't give a fuck.
He's going to run it up. And to Nick Saban's point too, like if you look at this, like, oh, this would be the spread of this game. This would be the spread of this game. You have to take care of business in the regular season to get in. Just because your name's Alabama, just because you have guys on your team, if you don't take care of business, you just don't get in. And these teams took care of business. They deserve to be in. And I mean, at the end of the day, I saw a stat coming into today that was like these semifinal games in the college football playoffs, there's only been like 2 or 3 that have been one possession games.
Yep, they're all blowouts.
So none of that matters. Like Nick Saban can come out here and say, oh, we would be a 1-point favorite or a 1-point underdog. Like none of that matters, dude, because you're not in, like, you didn't earn your way into the playoffs. These semifinal games are typically blowouts anyways, or two
Did you know
possession
this?
games. So
Owen Ozust, my man, Owen in the chat. I haven't seen him in a minute. Bruce Buffer is introducing Michigan and TCU, and I'm insanely jealous.
Oh, that's awesome.
I didn't know that. That is pretty
sweet.
interesting. But back to your guys' point. I think we all agree they did get it right.
Yeah.
I think they got the order correct. That is something I'm very happy with. But I think the biggest problem I have more than anything with the committee is how inconsistent they are. Right?
Yeah.
You know, a Kansas State, a team like Utah should be higher, but they aren't. And I just, it's so complicated for me, but whatever. You know, they're expanding the playoffs. That'll always be good. And again, Michigan got right. Michigan got good at the right time.
Yeah, they did. And they got a favorable matchup.
Right before the expansion of the college football playoff, Flannel. Right before USC and UCLA are coming to town. They are now the big dogs. They're now a powerhouse school, especially if they win today. If they win today, they're part of the elite.
Yep.
Now, if they win the national championship, now we can talk about them being like a Georgia or a Bama or a Clemson or an Ohio State. But just getting there, to me, you're in the conversation. You're one of the 6, 7, 8 prestigious schools in college football. And that's what they have in front of them today.
Yeah, the only thing that Michigan could possibly do that would make their season a disappointment is if they lose today against TCU, because they've already been to the playoff and they lost to a team that they were clearly inferior to. And this TCU team is a team, I know we're going to break it down more later, Michigan should beat, and Michigan should beat comfortably. There are no excuses. And once you get to the national championship, you're there. You're right there with all the big dogs. And if you win, which in a national championship anybody can win, those thoughts, they're making like my pants a little tight. I'll just say that.
Oh my God!
Do you really think
Booner.
it would be a disappointment though, like if they lose? Because
yeah,
but to your point too, with the Jim Harbaugh situation is no matter what happens today, he's already cemented himself as one of the greatest coaches of all time. There, he's turned this program completely around.
Yeah, but you can't be 6.5. I know, I understand.
I see what you're saying,
but you can't be 6.5 point favorites. You are playing the weakest team of the 4.
I agree.
You can't lose that game.
I'm not
saying they're a failure. I'm not saying that the Big Ten championship doesn't mean shit. That beating Ohio State on the road doesn't mean shit. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm telling you is, as Michigan, you can't lose that fucking game.
I agree. I'm not saying, okay, the season, I will admit, yes, the season will be a disappointment, but where the program is at, you're not disappointed at that point, win or loss today. Where we're at as a program, where Michigan's
where you're
at as a program.
is higher than you've ever been. I would agree with you.
Yeah, and now you go into every season going forward, like, we could be right back in this spot next year. Obviously, you're going to be thinking, we have to win that college football playoff game. But I'm not disappointed where the program, win or loss today.
You're not disappointed where the program is, but I promise you'll be disappointed because where the program could have been had you beaten TCU.
Agreed.
TCU is a good football team.
Yep.
TCU is one of the 6, 7, 8 best teams in college football. I think we can all agree with that. Maybe they're not the 4th best, but they are among the 8. In my opinion. Having said that, Max Duggan, he offers problems. Johnson, the receiver for TCU, he's going to offer a ton of problems. TCU are not a pushover. Having said that, Michigan, you are to TCU this year what Georgia was to you last year. Michigan were happy to be there. It was really good that they finally did it, but they were nowhere near as talented as Georgia, and they lost rightfully so. That's how I see this game. TCU's happy to be there. Michigan have a different level of expectation. They have a different level of talent compared to TCU. I don't want to hear it. This is a must-win. You got to win this game, Flannel. I can't see a situation where you lose it. Yes, TCU will pose problems. Yes, maybe they'll give you a better fight than maybe even some of us even think. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, this is Michigan's game to lose. They can't lose it.
They can't lose it. And Booner, I have a question for you. Do college football playoff appearances grow on trees?
That's tough because for some programs, yes.
But what I'm
Bama.
saying, no, I know what you mean. But what I'm saying is they have an opportunity this year where they are heavily, I mean maybe not heavily, but I would consider heavily favored to win in the first round in the semifinals against TCU, against a team that they are clearly superior to. So to me, it obviously wouldn't make it a failure. It wouldn't make where the program is at a failure, but it would make this season or how it ended a severe disappointment. It would kind of, the Big Ten and Michigan would sort of be, in terms of national perception, kind of like same old Big Ten, same old Michigan, get to the big game and can't win it. The season wouldn't be wiped away, but it would be considered more like Big Ten great, not nationally great.
They're in one of the best positions that they may be in, or
Ever.
most schools are in the college football playoffs era, where you're favored in the semifinal to go to a national championship by 7.5 points right now it's at. So yeah, I do see that side of it. And if we do lose, this season's very disappointing because you're expected to go back to, or go to the national championship and go play Georgia again to try and compete for one. So I am on your guys' side with that.
Good. And just imagine, too, and I know I'm looking way too ahead of myself, but Michigan is obviously favored to beat TCU. What if then Ohio State upsets Georgia? You would have a chance to have 2 games in which you are favored in to win a national championship. Those type of things, they just don't come around every year. And I understand that Michigan is putting themselves in the echelon of the powerhouses where they could make multiple college football playoffs in the next few years, but there's a difference between making the college football playoff and winning the national championship. The fact that they're in the college football playoff makes me very, very happy and excited. If they win the national championship, I could lose my house, my job, my wife, and it would still be a successful year. That's what winning a natty does.
I will say, if you go on the sports books, they do have national championship lines up already.
Yes.
If Michigan and Ohio State play each other, Michigan are underdogs. They're 3.5 point underdogs.
But I mean,
it's crazy to think, but
I mean, I don't really it obviously counts because it's a sports book, but Michigan went into their house and beat them by 22.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I wouldn't be concerned with a possible rematch. I would just be thinking that if Michigan is playing Ohio State in the national championship, the whole week I would be thinking, we're going to win this thing.
Yep.
And I'm thinking all this week, we're going to win in the semifinals. The road to a championship could end up being extremely favorable, and the road getting to the national championship is already extremely favorable.
I do want to ask both of you this question too, because I think, Adam, you would have a good answer to this, but if it is Michigan-Ohio State and Michigan beats Ohio State, does it absolutely cancel out the last 15 years? If you beat Ohio State in a national championship game...
Oh, I'll make it very clear. If Michigan beat
everything.
Ohio State in the championship game, Ohio State could win the next 50 meetings, and it doesn't fucking matter.
That's where I'm at with it. And that's why I would love to play Ohio State, to have a chance to cancel
I don't agree with that.
everything out.
I don't, because you need to play Georgia, and you need to go beat the big
I would rather beat Ohio State than beat Georgia.
No. You need to go beat an SEC team on the grandest stage of them all and prove that the Michigan, not only Michigan, that the Big Ten can compete with the SEC. You need to prove that. So to me, what defines your program moving forward isn't a little fuck you win over Ohio State. It is the big dog win over Kirby Smart and Georgia. You do that, you can talk to me about being a powerhouse.
As a Big Ten fan, to me, it's like, yeah, that's what we all want. We want to beat the SEC and prove that the Big Ten can compete. As a Michigan fan, though, I would way rather go into the national championship game and beat Ohio State to win the national championship than anything else. I would love for that to happen.
But to me, you're talking about a so-called fuck you win in the national championship against Ohio State for the national championship. I don't give a damn if it's against Georgia, if against Ohio State, if it's against the California School for the Deaf. It is a national championship.
Man.
SEC stuff be damned. All Michigan would have to do, all Donovan Edwards, J.J. McCarthy, Will Johnson, everyone on the team would have to do is flash that ring in everybody's face. It's a natty. I don't care who they have to play. Doesn't matter.
Especially with the way the playoffs are going to be going with the 12 teams. And like we talked about the week of the Ohio State game, that game may never, depending on what these new teams coming in the Big Ten, that might not ever be as big of a game as it was this year. If you get them in the national championship, that will be bigger than the game that we just played a couple weeks back. And you'll never, Ohio State may never have a chance to do that or have that opportunity to beat Michigan again in a national championship if you can get that done.
We'll see. Let's take a break. When we get back, let's preview the Michigan TCU game.
All right.
What solutions, what problems do Michigan pose for TCU and vice versa? We'll break down the game a little bit more coming up in just a bit. But as always, the College Football Playoff pregame show today is brought to you by our good friends over at Swiss Insurance, along with Custom Health Centers. We'll be right back in just a minute. Michigan TCU preview coming up in just a second. We'll see you guys in a minute.
The sports marketing agency would not be who we are without great community partners like Higuera Health and Carol Zaniga.
It's an awesome opportunity to partner with your organization. Higuera Health is a comprehensive behavioral health organization. We serve children through older adults with mental health, substance use, and developmental disabilities across Western Wayne counties, and really excited to now be in downriver communities as well. Give us a call at 734-458-4601.
What's a winter wonderland if you can't shop, eat, and play? Lucky for you, you can do it all at the Downtown Detroit Markets, Cadillac Lodge, and the new winter version of the Monroe Street Midway, all located just across the street from Campus Martius Park. Find the fun at deckedoutdetroit.com.
We don't like to brag that we are the toughest sports network in Detroit, but we do have a guy named Darren McCarty on our side.
Lemieux and McCarty, who've had a good knockdown drag up. There they go, right on the whistle. They were talking to one another.
Woodward Sports.
All right, we are back here on the College Football Playoff Show. Here we go, Michigan versus TCU. Guys, this is the matchup. This is everything today on a beautiful New Year's Eve. I love to do this about NFL teams. You typically aren't able to do it with college football teams because there's usually a huge disparity, but in today's game, it is a college football playoff game, so I'm willing to entertain the idea. Flannel, let's start with TCU. What problems, what solutions do they have for all of the things Michigan do well, in your opinion?
I would say the one way that they could sort of give Michigan trouble or win this game or give Michigan some problems is with their passing game, with the Max Duggan to Quentin Johnson connection. Because Michigan showed in the game against Purdue that a good passing attack, or at least a passing attack that just continues to be wide open and throw it down the field, can give Michigan trouble. I mean, the Aiden O'Connell to Charlie Jones connection was on full effect. Charlie Jones had 13 catches for 162 yards. And Quentin Johnson is clearly better than Charlie Jones. Max Duggan is clearly better than Aiden O'Connell. I do think that a corner for Michigan like Will Johnson can kind of mark Quentin Johnson from time to time, but the passing attack could give them some trouble. And also, if somehow, some way, they could get their running game going with Kendre Miller. He's a running back that I think is very underrated, that has been, to me, just as important to the TCU's offensive success as Max Duggan and Quentin Johnson. If they can get some plays going on the ground and keep drives going, I think that could give them some trouble. But I'm only the offense. The only thing that I could see them giving Michigan trouble at is with the offense, not on the defensive side of the ball.
Booner?
Yeah, I think that's like what everyone kind of going into this game is thinking is Max Duggan, like the downfield threat that they have. TCU is probably the scariest part going into this game. I think they lead the country in like passes like over 20 yards or something like that. So Quentin Johnson, That's probably the only worry I have. I think Michigan has, with Georgia, the best defense in the country. Up front, is it a touchdown, Bama?
What'd you bet?
I have
57.5. 57.5? Congratulations,
hit. Let's go. Needed that. I almost went 0-3 to start the
58.
day.
Thankfully, you don't suck at betting.
And I have Bama minus 7.5. So
that one's free.
We might go 2-1 here, but yeah.
Go ahead, continue.
I just think like the front guys there on Michigan's defense. I'm interested to see how Max Duggan's going to handle that pressure, because that's a big thing too. Is with this TCU team, they get the ball down the field, they get deep passes. Typically, Max Duggan has some time. In the Big 12, he's had time. He hasn't gone up against a defensive line like Michigan, even close, especially with Mike Morris being back today. So I'm interested to see that. That's the only worry I think I have in this matchup is that downfield threat. But I think our guys up front will be able to kind of put pressure on Duggan. In the Big 12 championship game, he had like 150 rushing yards or something. I think we try and see something similar to where he's going to be running around a lot today.
Fair enough. Here's what I think. I do believe Michigan, for the most part, have a solution for every problem that Max Duggan and that offense pose. But there is one thing maybe we're underestimating a little bit, and that is TCU's ability to hit the big play. Michigan, not known for giving up 13, 14, 15-play drives. But we saw even against Ohio State, we saw in glimpses throughout the year, teams can hit them on the ground for a 40, 50, 60-yarder. And with Max Duggan as a threat on the ground as well, with Quentin Johnson as their wide receiver 1, this is a team that is going to pose problems. I don't think it's as much of a walk in the park as we may believe, but at the end of the day, Flannel, I see too many solutions from Michigan's side of the ball where they're just going to, by nature, beat the hell out of this team.
Yeah, they're just so much more physical. I mean, the only way that Michigan can lose to me is if TCU just plays sort of a nuclear game on offense, as I said that TCU at their best could be capable of, or if Michigan just has self-inflicted wounds and turns the football over a lot and just doesn't play their game. Michigan is so much better than TCU in so many ways. What player on TCU's defense is going to want to handle Olu Oluwatimi or Zach Zinner coming at you all game long? They're going to get worn down. Who's going to want to tackle Donovan Edwards?
Dude, this is the perfect thing.
Bro, it really is true. Michigan is the best defense that TCU has played by a country mile times 5. I actually have some stats when it comes to Michigan's defense versus TCU's.
Go for it.
Michigan is 5th in the nation in scoring defense. TCU is 57th. Michigan is 3rd in the nation in rushing yards allowed per game. TCU is 64th. Michigan is 22nd in passing yards allowed per game. TCU is 82nd. Michigan is 3rd in total yards allowed per game. TCU is 73rd. So to me, I have very, very little worry. I don't want to say respect, but very, very little worry for the TCU defense, especially going up against a team that is so physical at the point of attack, that just wears teams down all game long. In the running game, you know what that's going to set up? Some play action, some deep shot opportunities for J.J. McCarthy to Schoonmaker or Loveland or Ronnie Bell or Cornelius Johnson. So to me, it's just one of those, if Michigan plays straight up, if they manhandle TCU physically, which I think they will, if they get a lot of pressure on Max
They're a
Duggan,
second-half team for a reason.
They
can kick your ass.
Yep.
And when you're a little fatigued, a little tired, you're not feeling your best. It's in that moment Michigan's offensive line flourishes along with their run game. Booner, they've been a second-half team all year. Flannel Sam really just broke it down statistically on the defensive side of the ball. But offensively, this Michigan team doesn't mess around either. They're one of the higher scoring offenses in college football. They're one of the teams, actually not one of, they have the most, quote, big plays among all college football teams this year. We keep looking at every data point, every factor, every position, every nuance of this game. It just points in the favor of Michigan, no?
No, it does. And I want to be realistic as possible, too, kind of going into this game, because I do think, and I've seen it in the chat today, I do think there's a lot of people underestimating TCU. They're here for a reason, and they're a tough football team to play. My biggest thing in this matchup is that first half is Michigan struggled in the first half. I kind of going through a game script in my head how I think it's going to play out. I wouldn't be surprised if this Michigan team's down going into halftime, like 14-10, and TCU makes 2 huge plays to go up 14-10. And it's crazy to think. And Sam, I know I'll probably I'll text you or get a text from you like freaking out, like we're stressed out at halftime, but. It's just realistic of how Michigan has played all year. They've worn teams down. Like Ohio State, we're losing at halftime, but we just wore them down. And that defense that we have that Michigan defense is just so like they just strangle you until you break eventually, right? So that's where I'm kind of at. Is I wouldn't be surprised if this TCU team might be up at halftime, or it's a close game, a 1-possession game, and then in the second half, this Michigan offense just takes over. That TCU offense starts to struggle because of the defense is so strangling on them. So that's kind of where I'm at with it, and kind of my game plan in the head of it. But I do think this Michigan offense in the third, fourth quarter is just going to be way too much for TCU. Their defense isn't going to be able to keep up, I don't think.
TCU
and that's where
can't
it goes
fall
to a
behind
2-possession
early.
game.
TCU cannot afford to fall behind.
And I don't
early.
think they will. I really do think that TCU will be a tie game, or they'll be up a field goal or touchdown at halftime. And I think, as we know it, Michigan is a second-half team that wears teams out, and that's kind of how I see the game script going today.
I mean, I think they could be. I think Michigan will be up by somewhere between 3 to 10 at halftime. It'll still be a game. TCU will hit a few plays. I don't think that Michigan is going to hold TCU to like 14 or 17. I think
There's no way.
No, I think TCU will be able to score, but eventually Michigan just has such an advantage in the trenches, both on the offensive side and the defensive side of the ball. Play like World War I, trench warfare, like they've done all season long. And TCU, honestly, Michigan's played teams that are way more physical up front than TCU. TCU plays in the Big 12. They're a little bit more finesse. They're not as finesse as maybe like your typical Big 12 team of the past, but Michigan is just, they're better, they're more talented, they're more physical. They pretty much have the advantage at almost every single position. I know that I sound very, very confident, and that's because I am. That's because I am.
Yeah, I'm confident in the game that Michigan's going to win. I'm extremely nervous, though, just based off in I don't know, Flannel, like if you're in the same, Michigan's been off for 3 weeks. They're not a first-half football team, and TCU.
You know, I had this argument the other day.
They're not scrubs. Like, what's going to happen in this first half is going to really set a tone.
I think you're reading too much into it. I'll tell you why. So I had this conversation Thursday Night Football. I had the guys over at my house, and they were talking about Michigan, you know, TCU, second-half team, the same stuff we're talking about right now. I told them, guys, when's the last time you watched Michigan play? They're like, about a month ago against Purdue. I'm like, it's been a month. I think you forgot how good this team is. Yep. I think you forgot how stifling this front seven is on defense. I think you forgot how buttoned up they are in the secondary with Sanistrill, with Johnson. They've got players. Barrett at linebacker. They've got good players, a very good defense. I think a lot of this is we forget, and I think a lot of it is paranoia, fandom, whatever you want to define it as. But Flannel, to me, a lot of this is you haven't watched this team play football in a month.
Oh, yeah.
I get you're nervous. It's your team. You don't want to see them lose, da-da-da-da. I get it, but Michigan were the second best team in the country this entire season. And there are some who could make a case that not Georgia, but Michigan were the best team in the country by the end of the year. You can make that argument. I'm not saying you would win it, but you could at least make the case. They were one of the two best countries. They were one of the two deserving teams that got in. Ohio State backdoored their way in. TCU got lucky.
Yes.
They got lucky that USC lost, right? So it's really only Georgia and Michigan that ran the table and earned their way, quote, earned their way in. Let's not forget that.
Wouldn't this be the perfect year for the BCS, right? Where Georgia and Michigan could just go ahead and play for the national championship already. And Adam, you bring up a good point that it's been a long time since we watched them. We forget how good they are. And I think this can't be overstated enough. This defense that was very, very good last year, had all kinds of NFL talent, is better this year. They have more ways in which they are effective. They have more ways in which they can kill you. They actually have more sacks as a team this year in 13 games than last year's team did in 14 games. And last year's team had a couple of guys, I don't know if you've heard of them, named Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo. I think Michigan is better in the secondary this year. I think they're better at linebacker. And I think they're deeper and more
Deeper is the right word.
Deeper.
Deeper at the front, especially the front four.
Yep.
Their ability to rotate, their ability to have 4, 5, 6 guys at a time throughout the game, making an impact on the defensive line, to me is probably their biggest strength.
Well, they're all fresh. And Booner, before I let you go, I got to give you guys a stat that is pretty staggering to me. Guess how many guys on the Michigan defense have at least 2 sacks? Give me a number.
8.
6?
I'm going to go 8.
11.
Wow.
I mean, they're always fresh. They rotate. Go ahead, Booner.
I just said there's the argument there, and Adam, you brought it up, like who's the best team in the country? Georgia, Michigan. You can make the argument Michigan at a point is. When you look at winning a national championship and winning games like this, I think it comes down to defense. And we saw last year Georgia's defense was one of the best of all time.
Stratospherical.
Can we say this year, though, I could argue Michigan has the best defense in the country.
Yeah.
And I think you can make a very fair argument. They're 5th in the country in points allowed. They're 3rd in yards allowed. You heard the stats, Flannel, you just said. Georgia's right there with some of those stats, but I think you can argue that this Michigan team has a better defense than Georgia.
I want to pause you for a second. I'll let you continue, but something just happened on the screen. Bryce Young just took his final snap at Alabama, 15-21, 300-plus yards, 5 touchdowns. I think he has all but certainly booked his place as the number 1 overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft.
Absolutely.
Houston Texans.
Houston are very lucky. I think he's the best quarterback prospect coming out of this draft. Now you want to point to Will Levis, his intangibles. We'll go to the draft talk. We have all off season to do this.
Lost to Vanderbilt.
I think they're getting shut out by Kentucky or Iowa right now.
Will
Last
Levis
I
is
checked,
not
it was
playing.
21-0. He's not playing?
Not playing.
Oh, that's unfortunate. But regardless, okay? Regardless. Credit to Bama. Credit to Saban.
Yeah.
I mean, he's turned out now Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, and it looks like Bryce Young is next.
Yep.
Who would have thought Saban would be the guy pumping out quarterbacks to the NFL?
Do you remember a couple years ago? I think I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there was like a lot of people like questioning, like, can Bama quarterbacks play in the NFL? Now you're starting to look at some guys that are really turning that table there, which is crazy.
It all changed during that national championship when Nick Saban pulled Jalen Hurts at halftime in favor of Tua Tagovailoa, because Tua Tagovailoa won that national championship and then sort of went up from there, had an amazing year next year. And then he passes the torch to Mac Jones, who then passes the torch to Bryce Young. Jalen Hurts has to go to Oklahoma and play under Lincoln Riley, but has developed also into a damn good NFL player. He's probably going to be second in the MVP race. So it's just amazing to see what Nick Saban has done, how he's evolved. And Bryce Young, honestly, he might be the best Alabama quarterback ever. I would say so.
He's looked like it.
Yeah.
He's definitely looked like it. I'll tell you guys what. Let's take a quick break. When we get back, I want to wrap this thing up. I want to preview Ohio State and Georgia. I want to get final scores. I want to preview Michigan, TCU, get final scores. We'll take some betting picks, Booner, as always. And then we'll wrap it up. All right, fair enough. You guys aren't going to hate me?
Oh,
cool.
no.
Cool. Let's take a break. And as always, the College Football Playoff pregame show is brought to you by our good friends over at Swiss Insurance and Custom Health Centers. We'll see you guys in just a minute.
As chilly weather approaches, Big Boy's got the perfect comfort meals for you. Try our hearty classic meatloaf or our creamy Cajun chicken Alfredo. These will be sure to leave you craving for more. How about breakfast? Our stuffed potato pancakes are back with our lumberjack, blockbuster, and Santa Fe Garden. These potato pancakes will definitely fill you up. Whether it's for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, come stock up on the perfect comfort meal today. We'll see you soon at Big Boy.
My name is Lee. I've lost 35 pounds on the Custom Health Center program. So the three biggest benefits that I've gotten from this program has been I'm not snoring anymore, I have a lot of energy, it's great, and oh, by the way, look at this. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
Call us at 844-789-THIN or visit CustomHealthCenters.com for a free consultation and get started for as little as...
Love Woodward Sports? Love wearing clothes? Then you should be wearing Woodward Sports clothes. Check out our full line of merch at woodwardsports.com. Just click on shop. We have all your favorite designs, like Dan Campbell kneecaps, Beverly Hills Golf, Woodward Golf, and of course, our own logoed out merchandise. Men, women, infants, kids all love Woodward Sports. Impress your friends. Impress your boss. Impress your dog. Buy Woodward Sports merch today. We are the network for Detroit by Detroiters. Welcome to
Let's
the
do it.
Woodward Sports Network.
All right, we are back here on the College Football Playoff Show. I am very, very excited. Boys, 2 games on the slate tonight. We got the 4 o'clock game, Michigan, TCU, but we'll start with the late game. Yes. Georgia, Ohio State. Booner, I'm going to start with you. Who do you got winning this and why?
I've been going back and forth here. I think there's a chance.
Don't be a bitch and say Ohio State.
No, I do. I think it's a one-possession game. You look at the semifinal games, and we talked about there's been, 2 or 3 the last couple years that have been one possessions. I think this is one of them. And I don't know. There's something like we've talked about it, and people in the chat were talking about it. Ohio State was in the Michigan game up until the 4th quarter. I think they have the guys on offense to compete with Georgia and make plays. And they have like C.J. Stroud, the Marvin Harrisons. Like, they have the guys to make the plays. I don't know if they can finish the game, but, I mean, if I'm looking at it, I think they covered the spread today. I think Georgia wins the game, though. I've been back and forth because the college football gods, I think they want Ohio State, Michigan in the national championship game. I really do. I think the college football gods want that. I don't think it will happen, though. I think Georgia wins this game. I don't think they cover, but they win the game.
Flannel?
So, Booner, let me ask you this. one of the reasons that Michigan, probably the biggest reason that Michigan has dominated Ohio State the last 2 years has because of their physicality, because of their play up front in the trenches. What is the one team that is probably more physical and dominant in the trenches than Michigan?
It's a fair point.
That's Georgia. I think Georgia will make that Ohio State offensive line, which I think is weak other than Paris Johnson, wilt. I think they will get a lot of pressure on C.J. Stroud, and C.J. Stroud has proved, and it's not all his fault, but under pressure in the biggest games, he doesn't always play up to his ability. I do think Ohio State can score some points. They have 3 really good receivers, one like stratospherical wide receiver in my opinion, Marvin Harrison Jr. But even Georgia on offense, they've ran the ball fairly effectively, even losing James Cook and Zamir White to the NFL. They've ran the football. Stetson Bennett has had a better year than he did last year, even though I don't have a lot of respect for Stetson Bennett. He's still been a pretty good college quarterback, should have never been in New York for the Heisman, but I digress. They've got guys like Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey. I just think Georgia, they're not as good as they were last year, but they're still physical. They still have studs on defense, Kelly Ringo and Jalen Carter. I think Georgia wins this game by about 17.
17. See, it's just where you look at last year's Georgia team and you're so like, to me, it's everyone's so quick to be like, oh, this Georgia team's great, which they are. And I've watched them play multiple times this year to where I'm like, wow, this is a really good football team. But they also have struggled versus some teams like Kentucky, where they won 16-6. Missouri, they struggled a little bit. Like, there's been games where like they've struggled, and there's been games where they struggled and they ended up winning by 2 touchdowns versus not great teams. It's not a great Ohio State team, but this is not a bad football team they're going up against tonight. I think they got the tougher end of the straw. Like, instead of playing TCU, they have to go versus Ohio State. So that. I just think Ohio State keeps it close, and we're going to look at a one-possession game where Georgia's going to have to go win the game at the end. I think they get it done.
That I actually agree with. If I'm Georgia, I'm kind of pissed that we have to face Ohio State instead of Michigan, because even though I don't have a ton of respect for Ohio State, and especially the way that they just wilted like little babies at home against Michigan, I still think they're the better team than TCU.
Realistically, though, Michigan earned that to play TCU by beating Ohio State. In my opinion, that's how I look at it.
And I agree with that, but you could also say that Georgia earned the opportunity to play the worst team of the 4. But I'm certainly happy. I'll take the gift. I want to play TCU because Michigan should beat them.
Fair enough. I mean, I think you both make good points. Final score, I'm going to go Georgia win a thriller.
Ooh.
Georgia win a thriller, an all-time rememberable game. 44-41. Georgia walk away with a big win over C.J. Stroud and the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Hammer that over.
Huh?
Hammer that over.
Oh, yeah. I think this game it's going to be fireworks, and I'm really thinking this Michigan game is going to be not as pretty as we think.
This is going to be like a national championship type game, Georgia.
Oh,
Ohio
yeah,
State.
100%.
That's how I'm kind of looking at it. That's why the spread's at 5 or 6.5. I don't see why you don't take Ohio State and think it's going to be a really good football
I would
game.
take the alternate at 9.5 with Ohio State.
Move it, yeah.
You probably get it at minus 180, minus 220, who knows.
But lower the over a little bit and then put them together there. Probably get minus 120.
Probably get even money. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, well, here's what we're going to do. Michigan, TCU, I'll start, and I'll pass the baton to you boys. I see a very comfortable win for Michigan today. I do think they will struggle at times in this game. But Michigan pulled away late. Give me the Wolverines winning the game 38-24. A 14-point win for the Wolverines. They book their place in the national championship game, their first ever 14-win season, their first ever college football playoff win. A lot of records are going to get broken today. Give me the Wolverines to win big. The margin will look bigger than it is. I do think it's a 7, 8, 10-point game for most of the game. TCU make it close late, and then Michigan, with their run game, just pull away at the end, and the defense stifles Max Duggan and crew. Flannel?
I'm going to go similar to you. I will say Michigan 41, TCU 24. Kind of like you said. It's a score that's very similar to yours. TCU will be able to put up some points. They'll make some plays, but ultimately Michigan is going to control the clock. They're going to wear TCU down and pull away with a very comfortable win, and maybe TCU does a little bit of like a backdoor score when it's 41-17. I think it'll be comfortable. I think it will be very, very clear from minute one, even if the score doesn't always indicate it, that Michigan is the better and more complete team. I expect in the first half to have a few nervous moments, like we always do, every game pretty much since the Big Ten season started, but ultimately it'll be a comfortable Michigan win.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys know where I'm going with this. I do think first half is going to be a struggle. I think you might see a 14-10, 10-10 game at halftime. And I think the second half, Michigan completely pulls away, 2 or 3 touchdowns, couple field goals, 2 touchdowns. And one bet that I've been doing in Michigan games is the third quarter. I take the over in points because it seems like it hits every single game. But I'm going Michigan 37, TCU 24. I think Michigan in the second half completely pulls away, wins by about 13.
Can you stop looking at my notes?
Hey, I actually had it here. I wrote it down 34-24 at first. And I think I have to give Michigan another field goal. I think Jake Moody gets us 2 field goals today. So
snubbed for the Groza, by the way, but
yeah, it's crazy.
I want
so
that.
Yeah, 37-24 Michigan today, and I do think TCU is right in it in the first half. It's going to be a little nervous at first. We're going to be stressed, and then second half just pull away.
On behalf of Woodward Sports, my show in the morning, Flannel, your show with Big D Energy, Ermanni and Edwards, the heavyweights, all the podcasts that we have associated with the network, to everybody that works their asses off here, we want to thank all of you at home. It means the world to us. Booner, Happy New Year. Thank you for everything you do. You're a big part of our social team here. All the stuff you do behind the scenes, nobody really ever notices, and I do. So appreciate everything you do for us. Flannel, is there really anything people already know? The Ben Wallace thing, I probably would have been nicer to you, but here we are. Regardless, Happy New Year to you and your wife, newlywed. You enjoy. Everybody at home, Happy New Year. I hope everything you aspire for and look to obtain in 2023 happens. Make sure you work your ass off to see it through. But till we see you next year, till tomorrow, Lions pregame show at 11 o'clock. Lions, Bears, big matchup. Myself, Booner, Jeff Iafrate will be available. Flannel, you're more than welcome to join as well.
I'll be at Ford Field for that one.
So he'll be at the game. It's too good for us, I figured. But regardless, you guys all have a safe, fun, exciting New Year's Eve party. Please be safe. Don't take drinks from people that look like Booner. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your night. We're out of here. Thank you so much again. I can't thank all of you enough for a very special 2022. On behalf of the network, everybody that works here, we want to say thank you one more time. We'll be dropping our 2022 recap video actually right after the show. So make sure you go to Twitter, Instagram, wherever you follow Woodward Sports. It's going to be there. We're posting it, some of our best, funny, and awesome moments of 2022. See you in 23, everybody. Take care.